The third step is to set up the cameras. First of all, I'm going to tell you about some of the changes I've made here. Firstly, in the post-process, this is this container, which apparently can be poorly seen. You can choose it here in the outliner. In the search, if we enter reflection, there is a reflection method here. The reflection method, I had a rate rating. I've talked about this on previous broadcasts. But I have now exposed NaN. This is creating, as it were, reflections manually, and let's say so. Why? Because now I will have a big load on the video card, and if we render, then I simply will not be able to show you the process. Therefore, I have now set the mode to and set the manual reflection. That is, I click on the plus here. Here I create a box reflection effect in the window. I'm creating an object like this. Here it is, and we see right now I'm changing its location, and the reflection on the glass is also changing. When we put it in the scene, expose it, go into the mode, I go into the top mode, and position it like this. First of all, I put it in the center. We change the overall box through the scale, that is, I'll show you now, we make it wider, or we already make this transition. That is, first a small container goes, and then a large container. We have done this as a smooth transition of reflections. For example, if we are going to make such reflection boxes in two rooms, we can put one and the other on top of each other, as if overlapping each other with these zones of mixing, as it were. We put a large container at the reflection box. From the outside, it turns out that I now have an interior behind the box, and I have an internal box inside the interior itself. And then I'll go into perspective now. Next, we bake the reflection, that is, how we get these reflections to work. We have a box in the middle of the room that photographs everything that we have in the interior around this box, and projects its sides on all objects around. And in order for us to fix these reflections, we go into the build, and here we choose the build reflection captcha. That is, we bake it as if we bake it as light, only we bake the reflection. Why are we doing this? So it calculates all the reflections qualitatively and already displays on all those objects that have the ability to reflect objects. Now I have blackened this curtain here. Don't pay attention. This is probably due to a lack of memory or an overload of the video card, because I am currently broadcasting. So the reflection we have here is not particularly high quality, of course. Now, if I put in a post in the process on the rate rating, the reflection will be much better on the water, for example. Now I will try to put reflexion on Freud racing. Now the reflection is much better. I'll put it back on now. So now let's start setting up the cameras. To set up the camera, we first select the angle we want to show. For example, now I'm going to choose this angle, so that we don't get in the way of these camera icons. Click on the G on the keyboard and hide them. For example, we like this angle here. We go into the burger right here and select the kit camera here section here and select sane camera actor here. Click. We create a camera right away. I'll name it here. I'll call the test K1. Test camera. So, now I'm probably going to reboot the project after all. If this happens, this is how I have it now, that is, there is a blur. Most likely you just need to restart the project. So everything loaded up. I'm looking for the camera in the outliner that this test cam 1 created. We choose it. Here we have a view from it. I go into it, right-click Pile in the Pile menu, and select the name of the camera. Again, here we remove the icons on the G. Now I choose this camera, and here we need to sort out some settings. First of all, we go into the search, and write in the Expo camera itself already. Expo already. Here we have an exposition. Why are we setting it up? Because, first of all, here I put a tick here from the app and the physical camera express. I turn on this parameter and turn off this check mark here. In order to change the aperture does not affect the exposure in any way. The aperture is our background blur. Then here we set the manual setting, and here we set it to none. In other words, we get more control over the exposure through the camera. We can leave 0, if necessary, we can make it even dimmer. To do this, I write 0 minus 0, let's say 25, but I'll put 0 now. This kind of exposition suits me. Now we don't use, for example, DAV here, so we disable it if we don't use it. In the Focus Settings section, we open the scroll, and here you need to select a Disable, that is, we disable this function in principle in this camera. What settings do we have? First of all, Film Pack. Here we choose, as it were, the size of the matrix size, if I'm not mistaken. So now I'm going to show you an example. Here we have templates. Here, but we can change them manually, and put, for example, 20 in width and height, for example. Somehow adjust the frame as we need it. I'm leaving the default now as is. Everything suits me. Here in rotation, we set up the camera turns to set exactly so that we don't have blocked verticals. I put X0, and well, these two 0 and Z we are already turning. Here we'll put -90, so that it's straight. Then in Lechi we set the height. I'll put, for example, 120, so I think it's fine, and we'll distance it a little. We do something like this. I've already set up the camera, just showing how it's all done. Let's say we have adjusted the position, the angle. Next, in order for us to render this frame, we need to create a sequence, because without a sequence, we will not be able to render anything. It's like an intermediary, without which we can't do animation or static renderings. To do this, we create a content browser with the right button in an empty space. So here I will create a new folder. Here, create a right-click in the Animation Level SQL section. Let's call it something, for example, Sequence 1. We click twice, go into the sequence and transfer the camera here. This is where we get the scale. The duration of our animation render. Here we choose how many frames per second we will have an animation. I'll leave 30 frames for now. And now let's set up the keys for camera movement. We set here which frame we want to move to which frame we want to move to. Now I'm setting 0 and fixing the transform. We can open the scroll at the transform and fix definitely location, rotation, or scale. The same thing is to open, let's say, a transform and fix a certain axis. I'm not going to reveal it now, I'm just going to click on the ball, on the circle, in order to fix, in principle, all the positions of location, rotation, and scale in the transform section. Then we go to the last frame. You can do it manually, so it will be more accurate. We write off 150 and make a shift of a small camera. For example, I make it a little closer, like this, and fix the transform again. I also click on the circle, and I get this animation. To lose, press the space bar. And the animation plays. But the only thing we have here is acceleration at the beginning and braking at the end. It doesn't look very nice. To fix this and make the keys linear, we select these keys and press the 4 on the keyboard. Here we have them turned into triangles. Now I run it and we have a uniform speed, both at the beginning and at the end. So, in order to change the duration, let's say carry, we want to assume 210 frames duration. Then we enter 210, move the cursor, and stretch the camera like this. And also do not forget to bring this red limiter to the last frame too. In this case, we will already have a new duration. I'll leave it as it is now. So, now I'm going to show you how the render starts. Here we will need the movie render queue plugin. It is not present by default, but it is in Epigames, more precisely in Android. To do this, run. We go into plugins. Here in this window, we need to enter a movie render. Here comes the movie render kill. We need the first movie render kill, and you can install this one as well as I have. You tick the boxes and most likely you will be asked to restart Android. If asked, click on Restart. After that, in your Windows, in Cinematics, you can run a movie render queue here. Here is a window like this, or in the sequence we click on the colon here, select the default movie render queue, so that it runs by default. And when we press the cracker, we will have this movie render queue coming down. If we run it through a sequence, the sequence will be automatically added to this movie render. So, it's like we have a render engine, so to speak, which will render. Here we have settings, these are settings. Click on the config, and we will configure it. To do this, first choose the anti-aliasing settings. Anti-aliasing is smoothing, that is, how many samples there will be per frame. We leave here for example 2:4 and do not forget to turn on removes anti-alias. This is mandatory, otherwise the antis will not work for us. If we don't turn it on, then we will have such a notification. They turned on the antilles. Now we have a Jeep here, that is, we get it. The render will be in Jeeps in the sequence will be made of spec pictures. If we need to go to the Panji, we select the Panji sequence here and either turn off the PC or click on it with the left button and click backspace. Delete it. But it's better, I think, JPEG. It will weigh less. I'm going to put out a Jeep now. Next, we do not touch the render defender. Output I will leave full HD. I don't touch the RAID in a custom frame. Output director here we can specify the save path. I leave it by default, but if necessary, we can change where the sequences will be saved. Basically everything. There are no more important settings here. Everything is set up. Next, to save these settings, do not configure them again. We need to click on the low safe preset. And here we click the safe with the preset. The browser content comes out like this, where we can specify the path where to save it and enter the name. For example, I will enter this name and click on the safe. Next, in the content browser, we have this file with the settings. And next time, if we need to set this preset, click on the arrow here and select a preset here. Or if we are already in this window, here we select a safe for low, and also here we can choose a preset. So, accept. Now let's try to render. About the render here is this frame. More precisely, this sequence 1, which we have now created. We can choose a render locale or render and repair here. I'll choose a render locale and wait. In principle, anti-aliasing. Anti-rating is not really needed if we do not have a right rating. There is little noise there. Here we have footage running. It turns out it's 150 frames, and I don't even know how many seconds it takes for one frame. It turns out, probably less than 1 second even. If you remove the anti-aliasing, the render will be even faster. So, the render is over, finished. Now go to the content folder. But no. Go to the safe folder, and here we need to select a movie render. So this is where we get all the sequences. The sequence is the frames. I'm going to find that frame now. It doesn't matter though. I have already made some sequences that I have already set up earlier. Then, in order to turn them into animation, make a render, we go to DaVinci. DaVinci Ulf. This is a program for editing. Open this program. Now we are going to throw these sequences here, that is, animations consisting of frames into this program. To transform into animation, we have such a window opening. Here I click on her project. Let's call the project, for example, like this crate. It's better to close Unreal, because DaVinci works on a video card, and so that we don't load it too much. Especially now I'm broadcasting live. There will be a heavy load. So here we go to the third section. I go to the gear in the lower right corner, and here we need to make some settings. Here we are setting 1080 pi 30 frames, and click on the safe. Now we take the sequences. Let's say I remove sequence 2 with a clamped shaft. First, I chose the first one with a clamped shaft. I remove the last one, and transfer all this sequence here to the pool. I get this kind of animation already assembled. But if you run it, then that's how it plays. Now I will transfer all the others, and we will try to make a composition. So I'll reschedule the second one. The third. And the fourth. You can select them all here through the Control Select All and transfer them at once. All of them will just follow each other. So with the viola and the mouse rabbit clamped, I'm now stretching the timeline like this. I'll try to run it. Here now we will compose with music, that is, now I will pick up some music. Let's say let it be this. I don't know if the music is audible or not. You can hear it here. And we pick up under. It is possible to pick up under the beats, that is, where we switch, as it were, such basses, or some other moments like, well, to adjust the transitions of these frames to the rhythm of the music. In order to adjust it approximately, that is, it's better to do sequences for 7 or 8 seconds under the music. Just like that. I won't adjust it for a long time, just do it like this. You can do a little bit at the beginning so that it darkens, that is, pull this little lever like this. So I'll make it a little smoother. Something like that. We can reduce it like this if we need to. So, when we have done everything, adjusted it to the music, trimmed it, we need to make it as if already as a video animation. To do this, switch to the render mode. This is our last button, the last such tool. So, deliver. We exhibit the code here. I'll put up codecs 264th. Here you can set the name and set where it will be saved. So you can point somewhere. Then here we specify the MP4 format, specify the code, specify. I do not specify an video, because I only have a video card and video now. Here we specify the permission. Well, the resolution is taken from the timeline, we do not change it, frames per second do not change either. Everything is basically set up here. There is nothing more to configure here. We add it to the task, that is, to perform this task here. This is a render. Adding it to the queue. Then we select this queue, that is, this task is in the queue, and click on the render.